Ka pai. Wo tēnā tātou katoa. Nau mai hara mai tātou I roto I tēnei whare kōrero. E tīmata ai I kotahi rua minute. Just wait for last people to come on in. Ka pai. Wo tēnei he mihi atu ki a koutou, ka hara mai nei I tēnei ata ki te whakarongo, ki tēnei kōrero e pāna Hineahuone. Te mea tūtahi he mihi ki ngā mana whenua o te rohi nei. Ki Waitaha, ki Kati Māmoe, me Ngāi Tahu, me Ngāti Huirapa hoki. But in particular, acknowledging those tribes who through the settlement, their footprints over this land and being acknowledged through runaka structures was erased. So, Kati Māmoe Waitaha hoki, who both I whakapapa to and my wife Jo as well. So, though we come from Murihiku and Kiritani further down south of the Motu, our people never thought about division in that way. And so all of that around whenua is a very, let's call it a brown privilege, a colonial, kind of post-colonial privilege in the settlement era, and still a lot of decolonising work that needs to happen. So, he mihi hoki ki ngā tini matu ko wehi atu ki te rā. Haere, haere, haere atu rā. Ka huri au ki te kanohi ora ki ngā kanohi ora, ngā kanohi hou, ngā kanohi hoa, he mihi mahana ki a koutou. Ko wai a hau ko au he uri o Ngāi Tahu, Waitaha, Kati Māmoe, Ngāti Huirapa, me Gujarati India hoki, ko Jessica Hutchings a hau, he mihi ana ki a koutou. Kia ora everybody, it's really lovely to be here, and I think, we love soil and we love seed and we love food and we love whenua and we love being Indigenous. And so when you come to a soil conference, more so than any other conferences, my nerves get a little bit going. I think because it's so important, right? And there's so much vested in it. So just he wā ki te whakatau te Māori, just whakatau te Māori. He mihi hoki, ka tuku he mihi ki Te Waka Kai Ora. Nāna I whakatimata te kaupapa o te Hua Parakore mai I te tau 2021 Te Waka Kai Ora was founded. So ka tuku mihi ki ngā wahine I Muara, to the wahine at the back who are representing the kaupapa of Te Waka Kai Ora and Hua Parakore. But also too, of course, remembering all of those people from our movement and our movements who are no longer with us. So I joined this movement 25 years ago, and I was just out there going, really, 25? Yeah, 25 years ago. When Te Waka Kai Ora was first founded in 2001 at a hui at Rātana Pā. And I think, once you have your hands in the soil and once you know that this is the mahi that you're doing, once you're growing food, once you're connecting to food communities through mātauranga Māori, through decolonising our food systems, our gut bacteria, our soil microbiome, then, really, how could you turn to do anything else because what you're doing is so beautiful. So for many of us, we've been in this kaupapa since we were first brought into it. And we were really blessed to be led by a beautiful kaumātua Percy Tipene no Ngāti Hine from Ngāti Hine who established this kaupapa. And we really were his māngai, were his servants. He's very good at gathering wahine Māori all around him because we do all the mahi to be able to birth the Hua Parakore. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit today in my kōrero. So just a little bit about... the shape of the flow for the next hour is I'm going to talk for about half an hour, and then I want to spend the last half an hour with you guys talking and sharing, because this is mātauranga Māori, Māori knowledge, and what we're doing in Aotearoa to layer other ways of knowing back into the whenua and back into communities is actually not a passive exercise. It's an exercise about everybody coming into right relationship with the knowledge, coming into it in community so that you can do it in a way where it's not misappropriated, where it's culturally held, where you feel safe to have these conversations and where you can be awhi'd and nurtured and facilitated along. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do at Papawhakaritorito Trust. I'm going to talk more deeply about the Hua Parakore and the 6 kaupapa of Hua Parakore and how we express them, and how when we were developing the Hua Parakore, and in particular looking at Greta Carney, I remember when the funding was all up on the research project that we did 20 years ago, Greta, her and I would be there on no funding for 6 months working out how are we going to finish this kaupapa and birth the Hua Parakore. And it's been birthed and now it's out there, and it's amazing that it's not amazing we're still here, but I'm just acknowledging that we are still in the kaupapa. And so with Indigenous knowledge of mātauranga Māori, it's not I'll take that, I'll do this, I'll have that, oh, now I'm off to do something else. Once you're in a movement, ka u ki te kaupapa. Hold on to that kaupapa, hold steadfast to that kaupapa. Because life is short and we need to sharpen our focus in what we're doing. We need to go deep in what we're doing so that we can bring other people with us and we can grow that kaupapa across the whenua. The vision of Percy Tepani was to have Hua Parakore, Māori organic farms, food production, Māori values, connected up through Aotearoa in our food systems. And ka tīmata ai tēnei mahi, so that work is underway at the moment, which is super exciting. So a little bit about Papawhakaritorito Trust. We live on a whānau food farm, my wife and I. We're on 12 acres in Kaitoki. We're on the unceded lands of Te Atiawa, Mihi atu ki Akwe Pounamu, Te Mauka Taranaki, unceded lands of Te Atiawa at the bottom of the Remutaka Hill. I've been there for about 22 years, maybe a bit longer, I think a bit longer. And we were the 3rd Hua Parakore farm in the country that was verified. So we've been verified Hua Parakore since 2011 and proudly holding that mark on everything that we do. Hence, I've got that tohu up there on the screen. Probably seeing a photo of a lovely house up there, which was oh no, I took that one off. Okay, that's good, because I don't want to go there, but our house burnt down last year. So we were due to come to the festival last year. We had a devastating house fire and we lost everything. And that's a real lesson when you're in your 50s and you're in that next kind of season of life. And what I have to say, what we want to share, I think, about that is our deep experience was 2 things. One, when it happened, it was our food communities and our Hua Parakore whānau who reached out immediately and checked in that we were okay. So there's something to be said about not just talking about soil and food and research and rangahau and all the amazing enterprises that we're doing, but actually the communities that and the way that we bind together is more than what we can see in this room right now. And we know this from all of the disasters that are happening in Aotearoa right now, that Māori are right at the forefront putting their arms out. I also too want to acknowledge Mangaroa Farm, Zeb. Shout out to the whānau there, because I think maybe not even a full 24 hours had passed and Matthew and Mangaroa turned up and bought us a cup and a jug and a trestle table and a gas bottle and a chili bin and something to wear and, and jewels for washing my son's Lego, just all of these things really matter. So we're talking about soil, but we're actually really talking about, I think, the things that bind us in community. So mihi atu ki te whānau o Mangaroa, Zeb. And just the second thing that I wanted to share about the lesson in the fire. One of the things that was really hard for us was to be on the receiving end of manaakitanga. And so, probably like all of you, we've big open hearts, drinking cacao, big open hearts even more. We love giving. We love to be able to whakamana our communities to help reimagine our Indigenous food futures that we need to stand up in Aotearoa. But when you have nothing to give anymore because you are literally broken in your pyjamas, because that's what you were in when you ran out of the house, you have nothing to give, and everybody is coming up to give things to you. So this was the learning that manaakitanga, mana aki, to elevate the mana of others, is actually a 2-way process. And so we need to learn to receive as well as we need to learn to be able to give. Look, I think we're all really good at giving, but that learning to receive thing was actually a really big thing for us. When people would come and give us things, our usual thing would be, what's on the shelf, what's in the pātaka? People would always leave our place with full arms, but people left giving us heaps of things with empty arms, and so that was a thing. Anyway, hoi anō koutou. Da-da-da-da-da. Okay, clicker. Rightio, this is where I want to start. I want to start here, and Joe's going to pass around some postcards of these to everybody, because I don't want to launch into a cross-cultural kōrero making assumptions that we're all on the same page about te ao Māori and how to understand our ao Māori view. And so what is coming around is just a postcard of this. Hang on to it. And probably for about 5 years, Joe and I were involved in a research project called Kai Ora Food for Hope and Wellbeing, which was really trying to understand what constitutes a Māori food system. So we often talk about our food systems are broken. I often say when I'm giving public talks, no one's coming to save us. This work is in our hands. We literally need to restore our Māori food systems. But what does that mean for a people that have been colonised, where our knowledge systems are fractured, where most people in my generation did not grow up with their parents speaking te reo Māori, let alone their grandparents speaking te reo Māori. And so if te reo Māori is the medium through which we pass down ancestral wisdom, the deep ancestral wisdom of our taia, of our environment, held in our language, and it's been broken, then we need to actually do more than fix our broken food system. We need to rebuild our tikanga, we need to reclaim our language, and we need to come back to those Indigenous ways of knowing, of being Māori. So for probably about 5 years, Joe and I were undertaking this research project, Kai Ora Food for Hope and Wellbeing, that culminated in this book, Pātaka Kai, Growing Kai Sovereignty, which just launched earlier on last year. And we wanted to understand what's a Māori food system. We went out and talked to beautiful people like Turangi Kahiki he mihi aroha, and other beautiful Māori growers and hapori around the motu. And the conversation was diverse, and it's at place, and it's connected to wherever communities are, their tūpuna stories. What their taonga kai was is different in one area to what it is in another area. Different varieties of food grow in one area as they do to another. But what was common throughout was this story. And this is really what binds the Māori food system. So mai te topi at the top there is rangi nui, our sky father. Don't think of it in a gendered embodied way. The essence, the male essence. Think of it as the male essence, te ira tāne. And then kei raro ko te ira wahine, and down below is the ira wahine, the female essence. And so we have rangi and papa as the absolute frame, the absolute, they bind everything, they hold everything within this world of te ao marama, this world of light. And then within this world of light, we have these different tiki on either side that are representations, and if you have literacy and reading whakairo or Māori carvings from different wharenui around the motu, our designer was very clever and had deep mātauranga. You may recognise your tiki in there from the different whakairo around the country. And that's to denote that actually Māori food systems at place are really different. They're not the same. So you come here to Ngāi Tahu, very different to what's going on up in the Norta, where they're blinking growing bananas. We all know that, don't we? But also to our food systems are made up of traditional kai, the kai that was brought over on the Te Arawa Waka, the kumara, and also to contemporary foods like kiwi fruit, Māori Kiwi Fruit Growers Association. Also to rongoa is our kai. Percy always said to us, he kai te rongoa, he rongoa te kai. Let food be thy medicine, let medicine be thy food. So there's no differentiation between kai, medicine. You know, it's all in the same kete here. So we have a food system that's made up of contemporary, traditional, rongoa, and that it's at place. But we know that there's this common story in te ao Māori that te ao marama, this world of light that we live in, is held between rangi nui and papa tuanuku. So when And of course within here is deep mātauranga. Each iwi have really deep, deep, deep stories. And when you are listening to these stories or in wānanga in te reo about these, wānanga in te reo Māori about these stories, then you can go deep, deep and deeper. I do just want to pause and just have a moment just to talk a little bit about te reo Māori and the role of te reo Māori in revitalising our soils. Because our reo is te reo o te taiao, te reo o ngā manu. And so if we want to really understand our onioni, understand our soils, understand our environment, understand what's happening in the taiao with the indicators and the tohu that we might be seeing, ka piripono atu ki te reo. We need to hold fast, join to te reo Māori. Because when we join to te reo Māori, then we can understand and feel the vibration. The vibration. Our reo holds a vibration. Ko te kite kākā, koi koi, ko te tui, ku ku, kereru, ko te tangi o ngā manu. That's the sound of our manu. Ko te kite kākā, koi koi, ko te tui, ku ku, kereru. It's the sound of our manu. But that's the sound of our reo. And so the taiao resonates through our reo into our bodies when we speak it, when we sing it, when we do karakia. So when we're looking to heal the whenua, when we're looking to heal the soil, the role of te reo Māori is really important. The role of karanga is really important. To be able to heal Indigenous land, ka whakahokia te reo me ngā karakia, me ngā karanga, me ngā mōtiatia. We need to return the karanga, the karakia, the mōtiatia, the pātere, all of it back to the whenua. I had an experience recently with Greg, Angela, some other people. Zeb was there as well when we travelled into a beautiful piece of whenua at Mangaroa. And to my ngākau, my heart, it felt really sad. And in my being, ka puta mai he karanga. So I had this feeling to call to the land to return the sound of the reo back to the whenua as part of the work of Indigenous land healing. So there's a whole lot of stuff we can do, and we're all doing a whole lot of things with hands in the soil, making compost, polycropping, chopping and dropping and all of that. So important, all of that, and all the other stuff that we need to do in our Indigenous world. For me at the moment, for us on the farm and what we're doing, for the communities in the hapori that we're working with, hungry for the reo, hungry to heal our land, hungry to heal our soils, hungry to feel the vibration of the mauri, of the energy again, of the taiao, but also too to be that conduit. Because I think that's part of the land healing, is that actually as Indigenous peoples, we again become that conduit again to do that land healing, because no one's coming to save us. Okay. So just a little bit of a whiz through around what we do in the Trust. We're researchers. I'm a recovered academic from the wide institutions of colonial knowledge systems called the university. Made it out of there alive, which was very good. But my wife still works there, which is great because she pays the bills and I'm so grateful. But being outside of the institution means you can think, right? You can think Indigenous and you don't have to back that up with meeting other people's kind of requirements around where the focus of your study should be or what you should be doing or you need to meet this objective. So we're kaupapa Māori researchers, decolonising researchers, we publish books, we write articles, but most importantly we use our skills to be able to work with and uplift the stories of other communities and other people, so that our skills go further than just us, you know. So this beautiful book, Pātaka Kai, showcases about 11 amazing Māori communities in Aotearoa operating Indigenous Māori food systems, but at really diverse ways at place. This is our research team. I've always got to plug our research team and acknowledge our amazing research team. It's a beautiful whakatauki in te reo Māori, e hara te tō te takitahi, te tō te takitini. It's not the strength of one, but it's the strength of many. And so, these are the people who are involved in the book, and I just always want to privilege them. We know this amazing, famous man here, Te Rangi Kahiki from Kairotorua. And Te Rangi Kahiki, I often put this picture up when I'm talking. Have I got the right picture of you up? Yeah. When I'm talking about this book, because I think for me this epitomises Indigenous joy. This epitomises Indigenous joy that we're bringing back when we rebuild our Indigenous food systems. And Indigenous joy is something that happens in communities. So he mihi aroha ki a koe, mō tō mahi harikoa, harikoa. Indigenous joy is also too part of what we're about. So just quickly, just sharing what we learnt from these 3 years of research. We learnt that food, seed and soil sovereignty is deeply rooted in wairua and whakapapa. So when people talk about, kai sovereignty, it's more than just having food returned to you on a plate. It's actually about remaking that connection as food as whanaunga. So food is a relation. If food's grown on the whenua, from where we come from, if food is harvested or caught from the rivers from which we come from, then food is our whanaunga. Because we are the whenua, tangata whenua. We are the whenua, people of the land. Should hold the clicker. We also too understood in a much deeper way this notion of tau utu, intergenerational economies of reciprocity. Capitalism is, we say it's let's compost it. We talk about hospicing modernity, sorry, the word left me. At this time where we're in these polycrises at the moment, how do we respond? Some writers talk about composting capitalism, let's stand up these new worlds. It's painful right now, there's a lot of grief. What's our role as we have to bear witness and hospice this world right now of modernity that we see collapsing all around us at pace? So how do we hold ourselves in that? And what Te Ao Māori offers, what the kōrero in this book offers, what these communities offered to us that we put together, I suppose, at a meta level, was this notion of tau utu. That's not a new concept, that's reaching back into our past to bring something that has been squashed by colonisation into now. Intergenerational economies of reciprocity. And that was our experience at the farm. That's why I started to talk a little bit about manaakitanga at the beginning. Clicker. We also too learnt that it was really important for our people to have an everyday connection with the Marakai. That food sovereignty is not just, I'll go out in 2 weeks' time and see what's going on. But ko te mahi o te, the work of kai sovereignty is to reconnect people again with the taiao, with the environment, and this is very much in Te Rangi Kahiki's chapter as well, reconnecting people again with papa tuanuku. And then, of course, influencing policy and political settings if we can be bothered right now. I kind of just want to skip over that one, so I will. Anyway, let's move on to this beautiful kaupapa Hua Parakore, which I know for many of us in the room is really close to our heart. It's one of these things when you're a young Māori researcher and you get kind of mentored along by a beautiful kaumātua, you never leave the kaupapa because there's not really a choice. You're just there and you believe in it so passionately, and it's and it was light that Percy brought into the world. It was a form of light, it was I don't want to say the word enlighten, but it keeps popping into my head. But, we have these people. I think of Steiner and biodynamics. We've been practicing BD on the farm for 20 years. That was light that dropped in, it's knowledge that dropped in. No Ngāti Hine Percy. Percy was from Ngāti Hine. He was from Motatau. For people who've been to Motatau, was there a year ago and up on the maunga up there, and the home people were talking about how there's portals up around that area. So really this is otherworldly knowledge that Percy was bringing into this world of Te Ao Marama, and I think this is why for many of us that we've stayed in the movement utterly committed to making sure that Hua Parakore can find its way out in the world. So Hua Parakore is I'll just rephrase that. Te Waka Kai Ora, the National Māori Organics Authority, are the kaitiaki, so the caretakers, the guardians, the authority of Hua Parakore. It's really important to say that, because Māori knowledge is not floating around out there and I'll take this bit and I'll have that bit and I'm on the Hua Parakore but I'm just working with Māori or I'll just have a bit of mana. You know, Te Waka Kai Ora are the entity that look after and hold this kaupapa of Hua Parakore. And at a time when Indigenous knowledge is being misappropriated everywhere, it's really important that we make that point. There's 6 kaupapa in the Hua Parakore. We actually developed it through a 3-year research project that asked a simple pātai, he hanga kaupapa o te Hua Parakore. This is what Percy wanted to know. What constitutes a Māori organic product in Aotearoa, New Zealand? And at that time there were 4 organic systems in Aotearoa, but none of them provided a kaupapa Māori pathway to tell an Indigenous Māori story. So four pathways for organics in a population of 5 million, not one of them provided any cultural pathway for us to tell a Māori story, yet organics was happening on our whenua in Aotearoa. So this was part of Percy's vision. He also too saw and had relationships with Māori growers who were like, oh, well, we do organics, but that organic stuff doesn't really fit our worldview. And this is why Hua Parakore came about. So these beautiful kaupapa, first one of being whakapapa, is really, you know, I'm going to talk about this from our place at the farm because we've been holding Hua Parakore since 2011, full verification. You know, for us, whakapapa, first of all, is about thinking about our own whakapapa. We're manuhiri on the unceded lands of Te Atiawa where we are. So we don't claim to be kaitiaki. We're not kaitiaki. We don't have mana on that whenua. We're not mana whenua there. So we really acknowledge the whakapapa that we are on unceded stolen lands. And we speak it because we're kaupapa Māori activists and researchers. We speak truth to power, unceded stolen lands of Te Atiawa. We're Taurahiri, we're from Ngāi Tahu, and Ngāi Tahu from India as well, so that's an important point to make. But also too, it's about the whakapapa of all the inputs that come onto the whenua as well, so that we have that traceability. So whakapapa in the Hua Parakore is about traceability, to make sure that we understand the whakapapa of everything, which is very much similar to organics. I can talk for ages on the Hua Parakore, so I just have to watch myself here and check my timing. Oh, yeah, okay. Why do I would think about, you know, when we developed the Hua Parakore, we mapped this to the New Zealand Organic Standard and it mapped towards health and safety. Very kind of Pākehā in how you frame that. But why for us, how we express it in the māra and in our practices at home is around karakia. It's around tuku karanga, you know, it's about karanga, it's around karakia, it's about elevating vibration, not just of us, but of the whenua. It's about operating in a way that's tika and correct, so that when people come and visit, or Māori people come and visit, that actually we're holding that tikanga, that cultural practice in a way which makes people safe, that we're holding their wairua. I'm going to leave māramatanga to the end because I always think it's like the pinnacle. Mauri is life force, energy and vibration. We might feel that in the compost. We might feel that in the soil. We might see that when we're polycropping and everything's vibrant. When there's a beautiful polycrop, that's at work. And mana. Oh, I just find it so hard to translate things sometimes. Mana is about the, I would think mana would be, you know, for us it's really about manaakitanga. How do we uphold and uplift the mana of other people? So when other people come to our farm, how do we look after them? How do we elevate their mana? How do we uplift their kaupapa? Through food, through hospitality, through right cultural practices, through enabling spaces so that they can bring their full selves into being, into right relationship with us. And then te Aotearoa, you've got on that postcard, because tērā te Aotearoa. That's the te Aotearoa, the natural world in te ao marama, in this world of light. So that's all of the interconnecting, the woven universe, the woven Māori universe. Mai to oni I ngā whetū, from the soil to the stars, the woven universe. That's what we're talking about. So Pounamu spoke yesterday about marama taka, mai ngā whetū mai I te marama. But Te Aotearoa reminds us again that everything is interconnected. Everything is interconnected. So we're not just about one piece. And I know it's so easy with soil. We do it as well, following a biological approach to how we manage things on the farm. We get a little bit tunnel vision sometimes, and then we come back out and we're talking about that bigger whole and that bigger connection. And then I'm going to come back to maramatanga. Percy would always say to us, when all of those kaupapa are operating in your food system, in your soil, on your farm, ka puta mai te maramatanga. Maramatanga will appear, the farm will be in this state of maramatanga, a state of light, a state of maybe enlightenment, a state of light. It's probably a better way to describe it. For anybody who stirs 500, does anyone do BD and stir 500? Okay. Like we know, right, when we're doing this, when we're spreading 500, and then if we've been putting 500 on the farm for 2 decades, when Percy came up to the farm and had a walk around, you could feel the arc and the vibration of the 500 that had been applied over many, many, many years. So these are the ways that we come to know. How do we know? How do we intuitively know that what we're doing is healing, is good for the soil, is good for people, is good for our food systems? And this is what the kaupapa of maramatanga is. So this is the Hua Parakore in a nutshell. If people are interested in it, I really encourage you to go to the Te Waka Kai Ora website or the Hua Parakore tent over there, because it's a system that needs to grow in Aotearoa. It's part of decolonising our food system. Decolonising organics is actually bringing kaupapa Māori back to food for Māori communities so that we can rebuild our food systems again. Rightio, speeding up. So, also, if you wanted to learn a bit more about Hua Parakore, I collaborated and presented an 8-part TV series that's on Māori Plus called Hua Parakore, Rebuilding Our Broken Food System. An episode features Pounamu, and our Hua Parakore champions are in there. So that's a really lovely way. Each episode is about each of the kaupapa. And it also tells a beautiful story in there about Percy and Ngāti Hine and where it originated from. So storytelling's really important to us in the work that we do. This is Papawhakaritorito Marae in South Auckland, who are also to feature, but they are a big stalwart of the Hua Parakore and utterly inspiring. And then my mentor, Dr. Vandana Shiva, we filmed an episode with her over at Navdanya in Dehradun in India. And then that led to her coming out to Aotearoa in 2024 to present at He Whenua Rongo, which then in turn led to her saying to Joe and I, let's write a declaration on seed and soil. We were like, oh, okay, we'll write a declaration with you. Yes, and we did. We pulled that off with another friend of ours, Matariki Ka, and then she invited us back to India to present that declaration on World Food Day last year, I think, where we took a group of young people from Papawhakaritorito Marae with us, because it's no longer about us, it's about making sure that we bring all these young people with us and give them all the great treats that we can when we get invited to do these amazing things. We don't want to hoard it, we want to bring as many young people as we can with us. So my hope in that is that we've turned on the next generation of seed savers, soil lovers and food activists in that cohort of people from Papawhakaritorito Marae who came with us over there. So that's super exciting. And then some of the other international work that we do is I just want to show these photos because this is amazing. And this is Angie Ferguson, Onondaga County. We're in upstate New York and Turtle Island in America. And they talk about working on the instructions of the ancestors, the ancestral instructions. They talk about having had to go underground for 7 generations because of colonisation. And when they did that, the women sewed the seeds into the hems of their skirts and into the hems of their T-shirts to make sure that they could take their seeds with them. They had a seed collection of 300 corn varieties rematriated to them. And I think this is the work that needs to happen in Aotearoa, is to rematriate our seeds back into the hands hands of Māori communities, to re-establish Māori seed banks so that seeds can be, so that our pūrākau can be held by our people and we can tell our stories that are attached to our seeds. This is Angie and some of the beautiful corn varieties. So this is some of the work that's going on to reimagine our Indigenous food systems and our Indigenous worlds, because this is what we're pushing up against. We're pushing up against food systems that require us to eat colonisation and whiteness every day on our plate. And so you could think of that as refined white sugar, refined white flour, refined white everything, refined white ways of thinking, refined white ways of talking, not bringing any vibration to the soil, all of that. So this is part of the decolonising work that we need to do. And this is what we're pushing up against. And, you know, we're on a real journey in our family at the moment. My son, myself, my partner, and it's beautiful. It's an intergenerational reo journey. We've returned Te Reo Māori back to being the primary language of our home, which is really beautiful. Oh, I just got lost in that for a minute. Sorry, just like right in that. Food says thank you very much. But one of the things that amazes me is that we can return the reo, we can return the waiata, and then we can go off and eat the most colonised food. That's the worst thing for our puku and our gut, and we've lost that connection straight away. So I think people know what I'm talking about, right? So we just need to keep joining the dots in the most loving way that we can, because this is a product of colonisation, and this is hard and it's painful and it's upsetting, and so we need to approach that as we do approach the restoration of our language. We need to approach the restoration of eating good food again. This is a relearning, right? A relearning. No white bread with butter and I could just name all those yummy things that could go in there. But, you know, all those things, the hākari food that we sometimes receive on the marae, made with beautiful love. But when the kōhua came to Aotearoa, when the pot came to Aotearoa, our food system completely changed. Our food system completely changed. So technology completely changed our food system. So we've got a lot of decolonising work to do around what we eat as well. Okay, this is where I really want to get to, and this is about elevating the mana of Hineahuone. And so in 2020, Joe and I had this beautiful book come out that's an anthology, Te Mahi Oni Oni Hua Parakore, Māori Soil Sovereignty and Wellbeing Handbook, deliberately connected the two because of what we know between the soil and the connection with the gut microbiome. We know it's incredibly important. We wanted to impress on our people, Māori communities who are interested in picking this up, that we're not just talking about soil, we're talking about our well-being, our hauora as well. And mihi atu ki a koe Greta, who wrote the beautiful recipes in the back of this book and in the first Hua Parakore book as well, so that we can make the connection that soil is more than just dirt, as some of our people refer to it as, but actually it's your pathway to health. And I know that we all know this, or that we wouldn't be here. But through this work, we, you know, really, our pathway went to, we need to speak up for the divine rights of Hineahuone. We need to speak up for the divine rights of our ancestor. There's a crisis happening. The WHO tells us we've only got 50 harvests left in the soil globally. So what does that mean for our food systems? What does that mean for Hineahuone? And I think most of all, it really is about returning to spirit. So it's about having this other relationship that's more than science. Soil science so important, but more than science. It's more than human, more than science. So we need to have this other relationship with our soil. And so what we did through that book and through our recent research work is we've taken those Hua Parakore principles and we have mapped those to think about soil health. So how could we develop a kaupapa Māori soil health framework for Hineahuone? And Joe is going to hand round to you guys these beautiful posters which actually come out of this book here, because we thought the soil framework was so important we should publish it twice. And so I just want to talk a little bit about it. And I'll come back to whakahokia whenua mai towards the end. But if we were to use those 6 frameworks in the in the Hua Parakore to think about soil, and if we talked about whakapapa, really we could think about honouring that indivisible relationship between land, waters, people and soil, so that we're not separate, so that we see ourselves as soil again, if we see ourselves as soil. And then remapping whakapapa values to soil. One of the chapters in the book provides probably over 50 or 60 names, Māori kupu for soil, that are probably not everyday speak for farmers in New Zealand, let alone our own people. So this is why the whakarauora, the restoration of te reo Māori, is so important for our soil health. Because when we can return our own language and our own names, our own typography to our soils, then we're actually really starting to heal not only ourselves but our soils as well. Connecting our divine senses to soil is wairua. Advocating for the sovereign rights of soil is about mana. And then connecting with nature as our teacher for māramatanga. So taking that ngākau iti, that humble position, where actually we don't know more than nature. But what happens when we tune in and when we are in right relationship with nature? Nature becomes our teacher. So the soil framework asks us to make that turn again to right relationship with nature, to see her as a teacher. And then te ao tūroa, understanding the connection to wider ecological, social and cultural systems. And then Māori, about practising Māori enhancing soil techniques. So what I wanted to do, and I know that's a bit of a whirlwind, and we've probably only got, 15 minutes? Yeah, 15 minutes left, is I just wanted maybe for 10 minutes for people to get in groups, because I've done way too much talking. And maybe 4 or 5 people in a group, make sure one person's got a picture of that soil health framework, and to have a kōrero, and I've got a slide, here's a question, just to take one of those kaupapa, and there's no right or wrong here, but in groups, to discuss the wider dimensions of soil from your standpoint, not from my standpoint, but from your standpoint as a soil grower and as a farmer, and then what advocacy practices do you use, or if you're not using them, could you imagine could elevate the mana of soil? Because how can we elevate the mana of Hineahuone? So my question is, what wairua practices that connect with spirit, could you use or do you use to lift the mana of Hineahuone, of our soils? 10 minutes, 4, 5, 6 people in a group, kei a koutou. Okay, kia ora no tātou. Ka aroha nui. I know it's such a small bit of time to talk about such a big kaupapa, but I just love how it's all popping off. I'm just going to ask, we've literally got about 8 minutes. I've got a great timekeeper with me, keeping me on time. So I would love to hear, and I'm going to start like right down the back, and we might have, do we have a handheld mic? Could you mic run this? Our friend can do that. Yeah, just right down the back there. No, I'm just going to see if I can get a kōrero from the group down the back. We got a mic coming to you guys. And even just like top of mind where the conversation is at, this is ongoing, right? I'm just trying to drop a seed so that you guys can water it and plant it and keep these conversations going. So just down the back there. Kia ora.
Hi, kia ora. The one that we chose was the blue one, Wairua, reconnecting with our divine senses to soil and enhancing the divine qualities of soil, building Wairua-based approaches to soil management. And we were talking about how much this connection there is between the soil and our souls, and how much grounding the soil can bring to us. I think just walking around without shoes, I came from a place that you always wear shoes. So for me, New Zealand has been really amazing to see how people just walk with no shoes and adapt to that as well. And yeah, we were talking about what we were talking about. Like we talk about so much. Yeah, the connection with soil and mental health.
Beautiful.
Getting the hands dirty. Yeah, we were talking about now how many people don't even touch the soil. Yeah, you just go to the shop and get your veggies and your food, and you don't even.
It's seen as being negative.
It seems as being negative, like, oh, I don't want to get my hands dirty. Oh, and
Beautiful.
yeah.
Thank you. Lovely whakaaro. Those shoes that you're referring to, those bare feet, those are called Māori shoes, and Joe's got those on today. Yeah, Jules has got those on as well. Kia ora. Just coming up the tent a little bit. Yeah. And maybe when someone's talking, they can stand up just so we can see. Kia ora. And if you don't want to share, kei te pai tērā, we'll just haere tonu.
Kia ora tātou, ko Tasman Tūroa ki Lizahau, ngō Ngāi Tahu me Ngāti Huirapa ki Wairarapa me Heritanga.
Kia ora.
We were all sharing our experiences. I didn't actually get a chance, so I'm kind of ad-libbing it. But what I was going to share, if you guys don't mind, is, and what everyone also kind of resonated with, was how they were connecting with place. Through my own work, do this sort of in two ways. I'm a tangata te aki, both in a legislative appointment under the Customary Fisheries Act. I know we're talking about the whenua, but I jump into the moana. But also, I like to hope that I'm probably tangata te aki in action as well. So whakapapa to Ngāti Wheke, which is Littleton Harbour. We're going through a process of any interactions that we have with our takiwā, our tribal territory. There is a human in that. That's just, there's a connection, there's an intentional, explicit, intentional incorporation of the tangata into gaining that experience and observing and building a relationship with takiwā. And I think everyone in my group sort of, in their own way, was doing the same thing. So, kia ora.
Kia ora, he mihi ana.
Tēnā tātou te whare, ko here dinton tōku ingoa no taharo, no kawhio, no whangaroa hai. Yeah, we sort of had a kōrero about our deep aroha for Hineahuone, and how we express that is actually by listening and observing her. and letting her decide what it is that we should be doing on the whenua rather than us making those decisions and placing them upon her. So it's really having that deep connection, keeping connected, listening always, and not just doing what always been done and figuring out. It's not always about, for us, the land having to be productive. She might need a rest. There might be other things that she needs. It's not about us taking from her, it's about what we can give to her. That was probably the general, do you think that was the theme of our kōrero? Yeah, just aroha for Hineahuone. Kia ora.
Kia ora, mahi ana.
Kia ora koutou, ko mai taitoko takunga, no mani putua hau e te rangatira.
Kia ora, Mike.
Tēnā koe o te rangatira o te kaupapa nei, te kaupapa nunui. Just acknowledge you, Jess, and your whanaunga, all the effort that you guys have all put in. The contribution you're making to the world and to humanity and to our papatūnuku is just massive, and so big, massive aroha to you all. So kia ora. We talked a lot about the diversity. You know, think about diversity. We need to get back into our whenua, into our soil, whether it's comfrey around our trees or, you know, the plantings around the fence lines to protect and stuff. And one of the examples I kind of thought of that triggered me to think about this was the experience of, we had a hill down in front of our whare that had about half a dozen sheep on it. And we had a tōtara there, and we watched that tōtara struggle for about probably 8 or 9 years. And it was actually 2019, I got off a flight from San Francisco, and I'd watched Biggest Little Farm on that flight. And I got in home and I said to my wife, we're going to take those sheep out and we're just going to plant. And we planted native trees around our tōtara and fruit trees further on that hill. And we watched that tree stand alone for many years, struggling. Sheep were kind of rubbing against it and having a bit of a nibble. But I swear this is the truth, that within weeks of planting those baby tōtaras, those baby native trees around that tōtara, that tōtara lit up, it greened up, it started shining, it started looking like this amazing species that just were, and now we've got a problem with that tōtara, it's now blocking our view. So that whakapapa, the ngāhere, talking in the relationship, not just between us and the ngāhere, but the ngāhere itself, and witnessing firsthand how those species can start to thrive again when you put them with their own whanaungas. So kia ora.
Kia ora, Mike. Ngā mihi. Ko pai te wā, tērā te. Mai. Okay, is that the bell, is it? Because I just got here. Yeah, okay. Ko tēnei te tangi. Pai ana koutou, e mihi ana. When we come into community and when we have these conversations, it's a beautiful thing and it's a heart-centred thing. And, you know, in the restoration of Māori food, seed and soil sovereignty, yes, it's about whakahoki e whenua mai, land back, but it's also too about being open-hearted and staying open-hearted in these tough times and staying in food communities. So, ka tuku mihi aroha ki a koutou i ngā ringa raupa o te whenua nei, nōku te whiwhi ki te hara mai ki te kōrero nei, a tēnā koutou katoa.